Okay, I will call this special council meeting to order July 10th, 2023 at 5 p.m. The land acknowledgement statement is we acknowledge with respect the history, spirituality, and culture of the Anishinaabe, the people of the Three Fires known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi Nation, who have inhabited this land from time immemorial. And further give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, now known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. We also recognize the Métis and Inuit whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. May we all, as treaty people, live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship with all its diverse peoples. And I will note that Councillor Thompson will be reading this on Wednesday night and doing his reflection at that time. So moving on, the approval of the agenda or additions to the agenda. Are there any additions? Seeing none, the recommendation is that the agenda be approved as presented. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Deputy Mayor Pringle, Councillor Winters. Is there any discussion? I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest to declare? Seeing none, you may declare at any point throughout the meeting if one does arrive. Item number 5, CAO recruitment. So the recommendation is that the job description and posting for the Chief Administrative Officer be approved and that staff are hereby directed to advertise for the position immediately. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Winters? Councillor Day? Thank you. Is there any discussion? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. I will turn it over to you now, Crystal. Thank you.
Sure, thank you very much. I have put forward to you a draft job posting and the job description with only very minor changes that were brought forward at our last recruitment meeting. I'm just looking for feedback. If there's any changes that council would like made to this, I can make them, and then it will be, if approved tonight, it can go out for posting tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Any changes anyone wants to see made? Councillor Day first, and then Councillor Coburn.
I think my sound is on, but can you confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great, thank you. I have a query and one suggestion. First of all, I wonder about August 9th. That's just under a month from now, and it could be a pretty big decision for someone to apply to a job in this area. And the first interviews aren't until September. So the most hiring I've done is for summer camp staff. So I don't know why we need a month, but we might need a month before we do interviews. So I just wonder why it's August 9th for applications to come in.
Sure. It is a 30-day posting, and that is generally the consensus with a posting in this magnitude, that it would go out for 30 days. And then with the time frame in August is with AMO and other council meetings, we couldn't get interviews anytime sooner with the schedule. So that is the time frame there. If we don't have any applicants that council doesn't feel is worth interviewing, then we may have to go back out for a second posting, and it does leave us some time that way. But right now it is a 30-day posting from basically getting it out tomorrow until August 9th.
Sounds good. And I like the idea of being able to extend the posting should we feel like we don't have enough qualified folks who have applied yet. I had one possible edit as well. I have the sentence here, and I've got multiple screens open, so I'm not sure I can find the name of the document. It's from the short version of the job description, and it says instills confidence and promotes initiative in employees through supportive rather than restrictive controls for their programs while still monitoring operations at the department level. I just wondered how folks felt about changing that instills confidence and promotes initiative in employees through support while still monitoring operations at the department level, and taking out the what we don't want to see, but just highlighting what we do want to see. I believe Kathy had her hand up in response, perhaps.
Just trying to figure out where you're referring to, that's all.
That's what I was going to ask too. We need a page number and a paragraph.
I can find it. It's in the, I believe it's, I did some cutting and pasting, which works for me, but I realized now it does not work for you.
Is it in the job description? Is that where we're looking?
The
I
PDF
found it.
called Seeking an Administrative Officer, and it's in Administration and Performance on page 2 at the bottom.
Yeah, I
Bottom
found
of
it here.
page 2.
Okay, so yes, it's the very last line of the job posting on the second page.
Mhm.
That's correct. Okay, so can you repeat what you were thinking of
Of
changing that to,
course.
please?
Yeah, I was thinking of highlighting what we are looking for as opposed to what we are not looking for. Instills confidence and promotes initiative in employees through support for their programs while still monitoring operations at the department level. I feel like this might be an area for further discussion, perhaps based on other things we've talked about as well. But I feel like we should be asking for what we want more than the many things we could not want to see.
So what you're suggesting is we remove the part that says rather than restrictive controls?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes perfect sense, I think. What's everybody else? Okay, do you have anything else then, Councillor Day?
No, that was everything for me.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go over to Councillor Coburn then.
Thanks. Yeah, so first of all, I wasn't sure what the difference between the short document was and this longer one, the third attachment, because I think they're both labeled job posting. Mayor Carlton, I have several recommendations for edits in the longer document. And I don't know that I see the value in going through it sort of line by line, but there are some punctuation errors. I have some concerns about sentence structure in places. I did flag the one that Councillor Day has recommended we change because it did sound as though, well, for the reasons she stated. But I'm sorry, my past work as an editor has got me probably listing 15 or so spots where the language could be tightened up. It's a bit repetitive in places. There's some inconsistencies. I don't know how to best do this, but I did run it by our CAO, who suggested I simply send it to the appropriate staff member with the markups that I have on it so that she can take a look at that, because going through every punctuation error is not going to be helpful for anyone at this point, I don't think.
So have you sent that as yet or not?
I have not, just I didn't know how the group felt about that.
I would suggest that you send that to Crystal so that she can work from there. I mean, punctuation, that's easy enough to get corrected later. But if you're changing sentence structure, then maybe go to those items and let's discuss them as a whole. I know I have a couple of things as well. So if you were to go ahead,
Okay.
send her what the punctuation and such is as a separate thing. But let's start with any sentence structure and go from there.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, even in the first paragraph, I note that it says the township is home to a rural population. I guess that might not strike a chord with everyone, because not everyone would consider us to have an entirely rural population. population. It goes on to say it's primarily a rural municipality. I don't know. I feel like if you live in the town of Shallow Lake, you might say, well, I'm not rural. I get the meaning, but I just wonder if that could be massaged a little. The last sentence of the first paragraph says with tons of year-round activities. I just wonder if it would sound a little more polished to say a multitude or many year-round activities rather than a ton. It's just, it feels a bit colloquial to me. I'll leave that first paragraph for now. If there are comments that in response to what I've said.
So I could agree with that last sentence, changing that to something that reads with multiple year-round activities. I'm not sure how we reword the rest of it. Unless we say the township is home to a predominantly rural population with, I'm not getting words there, with some built up residential areas or something to that effect. Throw ideas out here, everybody.
Okay, so what if we just went and we just did the township is home to a predominant like something, remove the rule, remove that duplicate rule there. As in, the township is home to a population of 11,000 people. And then we could just say the township of Georgian Bluffs. We could keep that rural municipality. I know rural it's in here multiple times because that was brought up at last time's meeting, that we wanted to make sure that we have a CAO coming that knows that this is a rural population in a large part of it. So we could keep that. We can change that multitude and multiple year-round activities. That's no problem there. If there's any other suggestions to that paragraph, I can rework it. It's okay. But I'm just looking for feedback from everyone here.
So I would agree with changing that to the township is home to a population of 11,000. And then maybe instead of primarily, predominantly rural municipality, do we need to mention built up areas?
So what about mix?
So in the past, we have in our job posting set a mix of rural and urban dwellings. We've had that in there. So if we're trying to focus it back more rural, is what I took from last meeting, we want to not have so much urban in there. So I'm open, however.
So rural and residential might work better. Kathy, go ahead.
Yeah, that sounds fine. I'm just going to let Ryan in. I hope it's okay that I admitted him. He was just waiting in the lobby. So I'm just through you, Mayor Carlton. I just wonder if this is the best use of our time. I think this is going to be a lengthy exercise if we're going to discuss wording for several sentences. May I ask, I wonder if this has been, this document has had the opportunity, and I know we've had to get it together quickly, has our communications person had a chance to look over this and maybe offer some input into this document? I wonder if that might be a better starting point than each of us going sort of through it point by point. It's going to take a while, I think, is my concern here.
Well, I think the idea was to get this done tonight so we can get the posting out tomorrow. So if we have to take it back to communications first, then does it need to come back to council? So I think let's just take the time and do it, even if it is one item by item?
I just think it needs a lot of polishing, Mayor Carlton, before we can put this out there. It's, we want to strike a professional tone that is understandable, and we can do this, but my concern is it's gonna take a while. I don't know how the others feel.
Well, I'm prepared to keep going with it. I'd like to see it finished this evening. Councillor Thompson, do you have a comment?
Sorry, I'm late. I was having trouble accessing my Teams today, but I'm here, and I think so. I'm glad I've come in at the right time. I think so. Are we talking about a process about going through this step by step? I'm going to ask that for clarification before I jump in further.
Okay, so Councillor Coburn has expressed that she's got a number of different items throughout the job posting that she would like to see somewhat corrected or made it a little more polished. And the idea is to have this ready to go out for tomorrow is what I had thought. So if we're going to have the posting ready to go out tomorrow, then I think we need to focus on it. I mean, beyond punctuation and that type of thing, that could be sent to Crystal for being kind of fixed that way. But I think the other items we need to address this evening. Does that answer your question?
It does. So when I was reading through this, I have done lots of job interviews and lots of, I guess, commented on these. But typically when it comes to this process, I don't feel like I'm the expert to walk through this one by one and do this. So I think the last time we met, I was a little confused about what we wanted to do. And I guess if that's our process tonight to go through this step by step, I don't know. Do we feel like we're the experts to do this?
Councillor Coburn, go ahead.
So that's why I was recommending that it go through our communications person first and have her take a look at some of the sentence structure and the readability. And at that point, I would like to be able to see it and approve it. That would be my preference, because as I said, this is going to be lengthy. I'm happy to send my workups on it, the comments on it in, but then as Mayor Carlton says, not all of council is approving that. And it's not that I'm changing any of the meaning or the content. It's, it's simple things like the second paragraph the second sentence has a sentence that goes on forever. And I just things like simply breaking a very lengthy sentence up so that it's easier to read and understand. I just don't know that that's our job. I think that's our communications person.
Then I might suggest that rather than just sending that through to staff, that it get copied to all of council so that we can all read that, and then perhaps Haley gets back to all of us with how she might reword it. If that's acceptable to everybody, because I think we all want to be able to read kind of the finished document, and I wonder if we could have an add-on to Wednesday night's meeting then, where we add it to the agenda, if that would give staff time to work on it, and we bring it back at that point and we can approve it at the end of Wednesday's agenda. What's everybody think of that? I'm seeing nods here. Go ahead, Councillor Thompson.
So thank you, Councillor Coburn. I think what I was trying to do was say what you said, but you said it more succinctly and a little more eloquently than I did. So I would agree. I think that, yes, you're seeing nods there and a nod from me as well.
Okay, so Councillor Coburn, if you would forward what you have to the rest of council and to Crystal. Oh, Crystal is saying send it to her and then she will forward it out to everyone. And then we can get comments back from communications and perhaps have that as I said, as an add-on to Wednesday night's agenda. That works for everyone, then go ahead, Chris.
I would prefer to go through it first before sending it off to Haley to review then, to see all the comments and make it from the HR standpoint as the group here, and then put it to Haley as a review. And then it was part of my second plan, if it didn't get approved tonight, to bring it to council on Wednesday night for another review, and then it can still go out on Thursday if passed on Wednesday as well.
Hey, any other comments from anyone? So if we're good with that, then we can. So we need to change the recommendation then. So the recommendation on the floor is that the job description and posting for the chief administrative officer be approved, and that staff are hereby directed to advertise for the position immediately. So we will need to amend that motion to reflect that we are going to have changes directed to HR, which will then be shared with all of council and communications and will be brought back on Wednesday night. And I'm going to look to the clerk for, do you want that as an amendment to the motion that's on the floor? So does everybody understand what that amendment was? So could I have a mover and a seconder for the amendment then, please? Councillor Coburn? Councillor Thompson? All in favor of the amended motion? Just hold, I think Brian's froze on screen. Okay. Councillor Day, did I see you putting your hand up for seconding that motion? Thank you. So I will call the vote. All in favor then. That is carried. And then we're back to the main motion. If I could call the vote on that, all in favor. All in favor on the main motion? Thank you. That is carried. So we're on to the confirming bylaw. The recommendation that bylaw number 2023-043, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on July 10th, be read a first, second, and third time. Finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Sorry, Brian, you had a question?
No, thing for the last vote.
You're cutting out. Okay, thank you. Sorry. Okay, so a mover and seconder on the confirming bylaw. Councillor Winters, Deputy Mayor Pringle. Is there any discussion? I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So date of the next regular meeting is July 12th at 5 o'clock. Ryan, on the land acknowledgement statement, I read it this evening. So are you still prepared to do Wednesday evening?
Yes, yes, I will on Wednesday. Thumbs up.
Thank you. Okay, so if there's no further business, I will now call for adjournment of this meeting. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Deputy Mayor Pringle, Councillor Day, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We'll see you on Wednesday.